Hi everyone, welcome to week 8 of distance learning. You've only got like 3 more weeks of school left. You've got, we're week 8, week 9, week 10. Yeah, there's only 10 weeks of distance learning total, so you're almost done. Awesome, I know you're really excited. Today's focus is going to be properties of logarithms. So last week we kind of introduced you to what a logarithm was, we introduced you to how to graph it, and then how to write from log form to exponential form. We're going to use those to help us kind of use some different rules with writing logs in different ways. So the first part of these notes is log and exponential form, and this is just a refresher on what we did last week of how to go from log form to exponential form or exponential form to log form. So let's look at the first question here. Again, you did this last week, it's just a refresher. I'm going to rewrite this. It's currently in log form. I'm going to rewrite it into exponential form. So remember we did that little snail last week? The first number that you get to is the base. So this is going to be a base 4. The next number that you get to is your exponent. So x is going to be the exponent. Also remember that a logarithm is the number or the exponent required to get to a certain number. So whatever comes after the equal sign, whatever the log is equal to, that's always going to be the exponent. Then the next thing I've got is my equal sign. And the last thing I get to is 64. So this is going to be 64. And now I've just rewritten that in exponential form. So go ahead and pause the video and try the one below it that says practice. Now what you should have gotten for your answer is 5 raised to the x equals 125. So your base on the log is 5 that goes here. Whatever the log equals is your exponent, and then the number that comes after the log goes after your equal sign. Okay, now let's look at going from exponential to log form. So I'm going to do the 6 squared equals 36. The base of my log here is the base that has the exponent attached to it. In this case, that number is 6. Then I'm going to put equals. Remember, a logarithm is always equal to an exponent, so this is going to be a 2. And then the only number left is 36, so I'm going to put that here. If you want to check that you did this correctly, just do the snail and rewrite it into exponential form. So if I go like this is going to be 6 squared equals 36, and that matches my original answer, so I know that this is correct. So that's my exponential form. Go ahead and pause the video and try the one that says practice. What you should have gotten for the practice problem is log, your base is 3, equals my exponent, which is 4, and then 81 goes in the middle. So that would be my log form. So that top portion was just a review of what we did last week. Now let's look at some new content. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is the product rule. The word product in math means that you are multiplying something together. So you have 2 options of what you can do when you're looking at the product rule. You can either be expanding a logarithm, meaning that you have a single logarithm and you have 2 things. In this case, the 2 things are m and n that you're multiplying together. And you're breaking it apart into 2 separate logarithms. So if you see log base b and then 2 things are being multiplied, I want you to think expand and product rule. We say product rule because you're multiplying. If you're condensing, that means that you have 2 or more logarithms and they're being added together, and you want to condense them down into a single logarithm. So you end up with something that's being multiplied together. So I want you to kind of associate the product rule with addition. So let's try some here. So on this first one that says expand. Expand means that you're starting with a single thing that says log, and you want to break it into 2 or more things that say log. Since I have the 4 and the x that are being multiplied together here, 4 and x are the 2 separate things. So you can think 4 is one of my terms and x is the other term, and they're being multiplied together. So my rule right here says that if I have two things being multiplied, in this case you can think of m as the 4 and you can think of n as the x, I'm going to add them when I break it apart. So this is going to be log base 6 of my first term, which is 4. And then according to this rule, I'm going to put an addition sign. Then I'm going to take log base 6 of x. And that's my answer. Okay, so I went from one single logarithm that had a base of 6. Since the two things that I'm taking the log of are being multiplied together, the product rule says that we break those apart with addition. So think multiplication, addition. And the log base 6 stays the same on both of them, okay? So pause the video, try the one underneath of it that says practice. What you should get for the one that says practice, the two things that are being multiplied together here are the 2 and the y. So they're being multiplied. So when I break it apart, I'm going to break it apart with addition, product rule addition. So you're going to have log base 3 of 2 plus log base 3 of y. Let's explore condensing. So condensing means that you have two or more things that say log, and you're trying to condense it down into a single logarithm. So I'm trying to go from 2 logs to 1 log. So I'm going to do the one down here. Since they have an addition symbol between them, the way that you condense that is with multiplication. So product rule is multiplication, can be broken apart with addition. So the two things that are being added here are the y and the x. So the way that you're going to condense that, you're not going to add them together in parentheses. That's not what the rule says. The rule says if you have 2 logs being added, that you're going to multiply them together. So this is going to become log base 3 of y times x. And I really don't need the multiplication symbol in between. I can just write them side by side. So I could either write it like this as log base 3 of yx, or remember that multiplication, you can do it in any order that you want. So if you put log base 3 of xy, that would also be a correct answer. So go ahead and pause the video and try the one that says practice. For the practice, the two things that you're multiplying together are the 2 and the x. So you should get log base 5 of 2 times x. And I really don't need the multiplication symbol in between. So I'm just going to rewrite this as log base 2 of 2x. And that is the product rule. Now let's take a look at the quotient rule. So the word quotient in math is the result of a division problem. So the way that this rule works is that if you're dividing something in a logarithm, you're going to subtract those two when you're expanding. If you're condensing, you're going to go from 2 log statements being subtracted to 1 that's being divided. So the way that we associate with product rule is multiplication and addition. With the quotient rule, I want you to associate it as division and subtraction. This is the same thing whenever you were learning your laws of exponents. Remember that when you had a quotient of a power, you did subtraction. And then whenever you were multiplying like bases, you added the exponent. So it's kind of the same association there, okay? So let's look at this one here. So first we're going to expand with the rule above. So what I'm going to do, since I have 2 things being divided there, is I want to turn it into subtraction. So if it says expand, that means I want to go from 1 thing that says log to 2 or more that say log. The 2 things that are being divided here are the 2 and the x. So I'm going to turn this into log base 6 of 2. The rule says if I divide, that means I do subtraction. So this is going to be minus log base 6 of x. And that would be my expanded form. Go ahead and pause the video and try the practice below. What you should get for the practice, the 2 things that you're dividing are y and 2. So this would be log base 3 of y minus log base 3 of 2. Okay, Let's take a look at condensing. So condensing means that you have two or more things that say log and you want to rewrite it into a single logarithm. So it says that when I have subtraction between two logs like I do here, to condense it into a single, I divide the two things that were being subtracted. So I'm going to go to this problem here. Since there's a minus sign in the middle, I'm going to do log base 3. The first logarithm had a y in it, so that y is going to go on top. And the second log had an x, so that x is going to go on the bottom. So this would be my answer. Now, this is not equal to, so what I'm about to write is the wrong answer. This is not the same thing as x over y. That would be the case if the first one was an x and the second one was a y. So go ahead and try the practice one above. Pause the video and try it. Okay, what you should get for the practice one, you should have log base 5. On the top is the first piece of the log you see, which is the 2. And on the bottom is the second log that you see, which is x. So this would be your log statement. The last rule that we're going to look at is the power rule. So this rule is incredibly simple. And if you ever take calculus, this rule will be your best friend. So let's start with this one right here where you have the x in front of log base b of r. So the power rule basically says that if you have a coefficient in front of your log, so remember a coefficient is just a number. So if you've got a number in front of your log, it means that you can move it up into the exponent. And if it's in the exponent, you can move it in front of the log. So in the case of this problem here, the x log base b of r, right now the letter x is acting as a coefficient or the number in front of the log. Using the power rule, I'm going to move it up into the exponent. So this is going to become log base b of r raised to the x. And that is literally all you have to do. So pause the video, go to the one that's right here that says practice, the 3 log base 4 of a, and try that one. So for this practice, you should have gotten log base 4 of a, and I'm going to pop that 3 into the exponent of the a. So a to the 3rd power, and that's your answer. Now let's reverse it. So let's look at the one below this, log base 4 of x to the 5th power. Right now, that 5 is an exponent. So using the power rule, I'm going to move that exponent as the coefficient or the number in front of the log. So this would become 5 log base 4 of x. Okay, pause the video. Go ahead and try the very last one that says practice. So on this one, you've got the 3 as the exponent. You're going to move it in front of the log. So this is going to be 3 log base x of y. That's my answer. Okay, so this concludes your video over log properties. The 3 main properties that we're looking at, we've got, you did log to exponential form. And then in the same, or the other direction, I guess you could say, you did exponential to log. So the first kind of bullet point right here means that you've learned to rewrite from log to exponential form and from exponential to log form. Second thing you learned product rule. And that means that if 2 things are being multiplied, that you can break those apart with addition. And if they're being added, you can condense them with multiplication. You learned quotient rule. That means that if 2 things are being divided, you can break them apart with subtraction. Or if 2 things are being subtracted, you can condense them down with division. And then last thing is the power rule. And that means that you can move the exponent into the coefficient position or the front of the logarithm. And then if you have a coefficient, you can move it up into the exponent of the logarithm. Please let your teacher know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching and have a great day.